Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome one of the great psychic investigators who has been doing this type of work for over 45 years. She is also the owner of a psychic center in Arkansas. Her name is Carol Pate. She has been sought after, in demand, heavily for solving crimes, murders. Somebody who can tell law enforcement what has happened, where the body is, what the condition it's in, even many, many times what's going to happen next, where the next body is. It's uncanny. It's remarkable. It's unusual, this level of specificity for a psychic, let alone a psychic investigator. I want you all to pay close attention to the distinctions she makes, the stories she shares. She spent time in Egypt, has some very interesting things to say about her time in Egypt many, many years ago. She has also been seen on Netflix and also on Dateline NBC. She's going to talk a little bit about that. And please welcome this wonderful woman, Carol Pate. Welcome to It's Rainmaking Time.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for that really nice introduction. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, it's true.
Aw.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure because the kind of work you do and who you are is rare. There are a lot of people with intuitive ability. There's a lot of people who have some psychic ability, and there's a lot of people who assert that they're psychic and they have like a 50 to 60% or less accuracy rate. And to have law enforcement entrust you is a very different thing because most of the time law enforcement is embarrassed to utilize somebody at your level who does what you do. And so I think it's pretty remarkable. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that work at first, in the first part of the interview. Are you good for that?
I am.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'd like you to talk a little bit about why and how you got into using your psychic skills and gifts to solve crimes that were extremely violent and horrific. And talk about that.
Yeah.
How did you get into it, and why did you stay in it?
Well, it actually started when I was 12 years old. Classmates had disappeared, and the police, actually it was the sheriff's department, came to my house in San Jose, California, and wanted to know if this classmate had come to see me. And I told them no. As a matter of fact, there was no way in the world he would come to see me because we actually didn't get along very well. And they handed me his photograph. And when they handed me his photograph, all of a sudden I started seeing visions of him with a young man. They were hunting, and they were approximately a half mile behind his house. We lived in Almaden, California, which was all rural. And I saw the young man that was behind my classmate slip and fall, and I saw the gun going off and shooting my classmate in the back and killing him. And I told the police this
Oh my God.
as I was seeing it. And they then thought, well, this girl killed her classmate. They wanted to know where the body was, and I kept repeating to them, it's about a half mile from his house, behind his house, in the pasture land. And sure enough, it turned out that he was found a half a mile behind his house in the pasture, and they did find the boy that was with him, and the boy told them that he had slipped and fallen and the gun went off, and that's how my classmate died. So I developed a reputation in my area and in my school in particular for being very, very strange or freakish, if you will. Uh, I remember telling my gym teacher in front of everyone, congratulating her on her pregnancy. The only thing is she'd only just found out and she wasn't married. And in that time, that was not a good thing. I had a tendency to tell people things that I shouldn't know about them. And I tend to, when I was 16, I actually worked with the FBI on a 5-state prostitution ring done through trucking, and broke that. And then I later moved to San Francisco, and I was in a nightclub, and this man came in, and I knew that he was there to murder someone, and I knew he had a rifle or a double gauge shotgun underneath his coat. And I had the owner of the nightclub call the police, which he did. And the police came, and it turned out that he was a hitman for the mafia. So
oh my God.
I've been doing it my entire life. It's always been a part of me. I can't seem to escape it. If you're supposed to do something and it's really your path, you can't really escape it. I've learned that much about me anyway.
I tend to agree with you. I totally agree with you. God help me and God help us all.
Yeah,
okay.
Really.
But at 16 to be assisting the FBI, that's pretty unusual. That's young.
Yeah, well, it was.
Why did they trust you? Why did they trust you at 16?
I think because I had so many details. You've probably seen some of the shows. I'm very detail oriented. When I see these crimes happen, I'm there. I'm actually there. I'm a part of it. I'm the murderer and I'm the victim, and I can shift back and forth. And I actually pay attention to every single detail. If the victim sees the murderer, I will see the murderer. I can draw him or her. But if the victim doesn't see the murderer, I won't see the murderer unless I can get a photograph of where it actually took place. In which case, then I can see the murderer. It's
wow.
So detailed. It's amazing. It amazes me, actually. I don't know how I do it.
I saw your work, some of your work on the show Psychic Investigators on Netflix. Season 8, The Wrong Man, and Season 3, Episode 4, Who Killed the Flower Girl.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I was blown away with that.
Yes.
Absolutely blown away. And how do you detox from what you get? How do you not carry it into the other parts of your life?
That's a very good question, because in the very beginnings of working with the police on a more regular basis, which I've worked hundreds of cases, one of the major cases that I worked on was in my state, and it was a man who owned a hardware store, and this man came in and literally used a number of, like an axe, a hoe, knives, to literally murder this man in his own store. And I remember sitting down in the chair that he died in, and I actually felt every blow of what happened. I felt his pain and the intensity of the pain. And the pain put me away for about 2 weeks after that occurred. We did get the man, by the way, that murdered him.
Wow.
And I learned that this is going to sound really strange, but I apparently work through electromagnetic energy. When I'm working, I erase tapes. I drain batteries when filming, that sort of thing. And a friend of mine had a degausser. Do you know what a degausser is?
No. Oh, a degausser?
Yeah, degausser.
That's to take out some of the dirty energy from a device, right?
Exactly.
Or degauss, or lower the amps or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
He said, let me try something with you. He said, I think this might take the pain away. And he used a degausser on me, my meridians, the front, back, and side. And it removed the pain, which I thought was amazing. Wow. So this is electromagnetic energy that I'm using to get the information.
That's totally interesting to me. That's because we've interviewed a lot of the remote viewers, some of the top controlled remote viewers in the world, and Buchanan and Paul Smith and a few others, Dick Algar, and there is, at least in the controlled remote viewing program, there is a process to detox from that which the details, the ambiance, the feeling, the everything that you describe that you pick up, they pick up, but they have to detox and go through a detox, or they bring it into their existing life, literally.
Yeah.
That's how serious it is. So that's why I asked you about the detox process.
Exactly. Yeah. But I learned another way. I did keep the degausser, but I learned another way. My guides, who has been there with me since I was born, the Holy Spirits, taught me to use iodized table salt, 1/3 cup in the bath water, and to get it from head to toe, and it cleansed me like the degausser, just like the degausser.
The salt?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. So whenever I work in the...
What was the...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Whenever you work with them?
Whenever I work on a murder case, after I get done with the murder case, I do the salt bath.
That's fantastic. That I would think that would be good anyway.
Yes.
Tuning into somebody else psychically, let alone that kind of volatile, violent material that you have to translate, right? And you do.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a very difficult...
Let's see. What has been the most interesting in all the years of your experience where a law, law officer or a department, law enforcement department had a shift of heart about what you do and what you bring?
Oh, that's happened in a few cases, actually. I think when I was working with the Texas Rangers, in Texas, they called me on a case that had just really recently happened, like within 2 to 3 days. I think it was the third day, and they flew me in, and it was a small trailer that this man lived in, and he had some friends over. And there were 5 people all together, and they were all massacred in the back bedroom using a rifle. And you could smell the blood in the trailer and see the brain matter on the walls. And
oh my God!
I completely became. I saw the murder. I saw the murder took place. I saw the murderer, and I knew why he was there and why it was happening, and his name, which I don't usually get names, but I got his name. I got his first name, which was Dave.
That's unusual.
Yes.
Wow.
And I saw him calling his wife after the murder had taken place, and I knew that she was pregnant, and the reason that he had done the murder was it was his uncle, and he thought there was money hidden there. And he was desperate because he was going to have a baby, and he had no funds. And he had a Hispanic man with him that assisted him and was also there to get the funds. And he was calling his wife, letting her know that he was going to have the money for the birth of the child. And I had every
Oh my
single
God.
detail, even to them having smoked the cigarette and just outside the back of the trailer, and they found the cigarette butts. And then I had them take me down certain roads where I was able to point out where his parents lived and where he lived. And I made believers out of them.
Were you ever concerned for your own well-being?
Yes, on a couple of cases I was. I wasn't ever really scared, but I knew that the murderer was planning on murdering me. It was a local case.
How did he know you were involved? Oh, because he knew you were involved?
He knew I was involved, yes.
Like,
the family knew him, and they didn't realize that they knew him, okay? And they were talking about bringing me in and all the information that I had gotten. And I was working with the police, and they were talking about everything I was coming up with. So he knew every step that I was giving to the police. And he moved the body like about 3 times, okay? And I would tell them that he was moving the body. And finally, I believe it was like the 3rd time he'd moved it to his family's country home, and he had buried the body. And consequently, I saw him do it, and I had the police go there, and they got him in the process of burying the body and put him in jail. And believe it or not, they were looking at bonding him out. And he was sitting there planning.
oh my God, you've got to be kidding.
No. And he was sitting there planning on killing me. And I heard it in his head. And so I called the bail bondsman and asked, because I knew them, and asked them to please intercede for me with the judge because this man is planning on murdering me. And they did, and they stopped it, and they located the body, and everything was, he went to prison. So it was just a,
Wow, they would let somebody out on a bond
yeah,
for murder?
Yeah, they were looking at it.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You must have panicked.
Yeah. No, I didn't panic. I did what was.
I would have panicked.
I did what was constructive. That was to get the judge to not bond him out.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God you did that.
I had that
Now,
happen on a couple.
I understand. Have you?
Yeah.
You became popular with murderers who wanted to come after you for identifying them?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it happened.
That's heavy. That's really heavy. Over the years, you also bridged some of your work to do psychic investigations into fraud. Is that correct?
Yes. I have.
When did you get into that? When did you transition or add that or how did it come to you that that's something that you should also provide?
Well, I was doing readings for people in general. Let me clarify this. I got pushed into being a psychic. It was not by choice. Okay. I didn't even want to be a psychic. I was executive director of the Kidney Foundation of Arkansas, for God's sakes. And I really, yeah, and I really enjoyed the work. I love doing fundraising and that sort of thing. And I was working on the murder cases anonymously. Wasn't being paid for them, or I did it because it was the right thing to do, because I couldn't escape them. And I was working on a murder case locally, and I was driving, and I saw this woman, and I saw this man, and I saw he had on a Texaco uniform. His name was printed across his uniform. His name was Sonny, and he had a bunch of pins. And then I saw the car, and then I saw the license plate of the car. and I saw how she was dressed and what she looked like. And I waited for a while because I didn't know what to do about this vision that I was seeing. And I finally called the Sherwood police because she had disappeared from Sherwood, Arkansas, and asked them if there was a disappearance. And they said no. And then about a day later, she showed up on the TV. Her picture was on the TV, missing person out of Sherwood. And I called the Sherwood police and I said, this is the woman I was calling about. And they said, oh my God. And they sent the police over to see me along with the newspaper, TV, and everybody else because I told them about her driver's license and what I'd seen over the phone. And I got...
Was it a driver's license or was it the license on a car?
The license on her car. Thank you for catching that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. That's all right.
So I got busted.
I'm actually fully here.
I got busted out. I was busted out of my closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I could no longer hide who I was. I wanted to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be this psychic person. But here I am. So after that, I started getting readings. And then I found out, there was a bank. There was actually 4 or 5 Worthen banks that were having a conference, and they invited me to come to a conference to do readings at the conference. So I said, okay. And I went to the conference, and I was doing readings on the bank presidents, and I told them about the people that were stealing their money that worked for them. And
oh my God.
There was about 3 of them that I busted out. And they gave me a nice little reward for that, which was really nice.
I hope so. I hope so.
And,
it's a funny thing because the banks often siphon other people's money and often steal their money. And it's so interesting that here you were helping the banks. But, life presents to you the occasion to do your work.
Well, I was supposed to do it, apparently.
Yeah.
And it opened up all new different lines for me. So now I work on virtually all sorts of different situations, all the way to just regular readings for people and guiding them, helping them through their life ordeals. So it's opened up.
But now, if I'm correct, I'm sorry. If I know we have you're coming in off of VoIP line, so we've cross-talked here. Sorry about that. Just to clarify for you, now I forgot because we cross-talked. What minute are we in? 23 minutes, 30 seconds. I just went bonkers.
There you
go ahead. Do you remember what you were saying?
No.
Okay, good. All right, I don't feel so bad.
There you go.
So in terms of fraud, but my understanding right now at this time in your life, Carol, you're not doing murder inquiries and investigations. You're doing everything else, correct?
Yes, but I intend to get back into it. I don't want to, but I know that I will be getting back into it. The only reason I'm not doing it now is because I had a nasty fall and I broke my arm and dislocated my shoulder, and my body's gone through too much trauma to try to go through other people's traumas.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I
don't blame you at all.
I can't do it right now. But hopefully I'll get back.
I don't know why would you want to return to that though? It's so hard on the body and the spirit. Do you really need to do it? Or you feel like you should do it?
I feel like I should. Let me tell you something. I've dealt on children's disappearance, rapes, and murders. And I've gotten the people that have done that. And I really feel that I have a gift that God has obligated me to help people with. And if I can help somebody, if I can stop people that are so cruel and so evil, then I feel it's my responsibility to do that, because I've been given the gift to do it with.
That's very, very noble of you, actually. And you're that gifting at the level at which you have it and have developed it is very much needed. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I interviewed the forensic examiner who examined John F. Kennedy's body.
No, I didn't know that.
Many years ago. Yeah, I did. That's an interesting one. That Carl Wecht, Dr. Carl Wecht. And, I was never into trying to figure out that whole scenario.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. I wanted to interview a pathologist. Boy, what they go through. They go through believe it or not, a lot of political pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Because what they find, there may be people in power that don't want them to find what they find. And sometimes these forensic pathologists are taken out.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yes, I know that.
It's actually a more dangerous job than I ever thought now to be a forensic pathologist. Much more dangerous and political job if you find things that the people in power don't want you to find as an examiner.
Exactly. Yes, I know. Yes, politics is pretty corrupt.
It's in everything. It's in everything. It's in every field, every endeavor. Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about your church. Now, a few months ago, we did an interview with Dr. Rocco Errico on the Aramaic Bible. Yes. We've done a piece on the Torah from the Aramaic perspective. We've done a lot of Christians and work on Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and you have a center.
Yes.
That the Carol Pate Psychic Center, and you have a very different translation of bridging what appears to be metaphysics, quantum physics, and the Christian church that I think is exciting but may scare traditional people that perceive themselves as only Christian. How do you explain what this center is dedicated to and what you're actually doing?
Well, the church itself, my guides told me to organize it and to get it registered, and it was to be a new religion, which I thought was very odd, but they said that the people needed it and that it would be protection for me later on, and I didn't fully understand that. I was raised Baptist. My grandfathers, both sides, were Baptist ministers. My father was an atheist. My mother was a Baptist. And I don't really believe in dogma. My guides have taught me since I was a child that God doesn't do dogma, that God is a loving God and is not a God of judgment as it has been taught. And when they told me I was going to have to do a church, I don't want to do a church. I believe in spirituality. I believe in God. I believe in Christ. I believe there's a Satan. My guides have always told me 3 rules of thumb: God, Christ, Satan are real. And they said, you are to do this. You are to bridge New Age with Christianity because there's truth in both, but they need to be brought back together. And the New Age needs to have God back and Christ back and Satan understood. Because the one thing that Satan doesn't want anyone to believe is that he is real. I said, okay, all right. Because I've always found that they were always 100% accurate. So I actually developed New Age Christian Church and got it legalized here in the state of Arkansas. And that's not nationwide, but it's legal in the state of Arkansas, and I am a legal minister. So I'm very Christian-oriented. I just left off all the dogmas. I have no dogmas in my church.
In my experience, having been around so many very religious people in my life, even though I'm from Los Angeles, lived in 3 countries in Europe, and traveled extensively, this particular culture of Christians is very, very challenging to bring in quantum physics, metaphysics, because it is often blocked or put down or demonized, literally, no pun intended.
Yes.
So when integration is attempted, no matter how articulate, it's immediately rejected a lot of times and deflected. And then the person who's bringing it in is often, being told they're a demon or they're demon possessed or what have you. And that's the sad part about it. So the bridge work that someone like you and Dr. Rocco Erica, who does a different aspect of the early scriptures, it's a real challenge. And you're living in a very religious area, Arkansas and Little Rock. Do you find that people are open to you? I know obviously you were guided to do it there, but are people open to you?
They are now. When I first came here, of course, I didn't come here as a psychic, okay? And I developed a good reputation through being executive director of the Kidney Foundation of Arkansas and working with the communities and so forth. So I had a good reputation to begin with before I got slammed out of my closet, okay? But I did work with some local police departments, and they did think that I was of the devil, that my information came from the devil itself. And I tried to talk to them, and I realized that you can't talk to them, so you have to prove. Yeah, I had to prove myself, and that's what I did. I proved myself over and over and over again, and got reliability, got credibility, and I tried to explain to them and that you learn the tree by the fruit of the tree, and I always made it clear that I was Christian.
Okay. I hear you. Stand by for just a moment, okay? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I had to stop for a minute because I was saving ducks. One that broke its leg, a crow yesterday. Apparently, I've been in the wildlife sanctuary rescue business for 24 hours. I'm so exhausted. I need a good nap. And it's been so hot here in Charlotte, and with the humidity that I've been feeding them and giving them water every day in the front and backyard. And I'm at the end of my rope watching injured animals. But wildlife, just so you all know, is obviously the volunteers are overworked. It's sometimes complicated to do these rescues. And you don't always get somebody when you need them or when the animal is there in front of you. So it's been a wild chase. Welcome back to It's Rainmaking Time with Carol Pate. That break was because I had to run with a wildlife specialist to show her where the action was or is.
I think it's great.
And when sometimes that's the ministry. It's an animal ministry, apparently.
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit about, I want to go back to some of the things you said about demonic influence and input, and, how a lot of times something demonic, that space wants you, that consciousness wants you to think it's not real and it doesn't exist. Now, in the Aramaic Bible, it doesn't use that word.
No.
And, but we know that there's a dark force. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yes, there's many words for it, and many words have been, they've come up with it during the Middle Ages in particular. So, but there is fallen angelic. They were called daemons. And that goes back to the time of King Solomon, when he was given the pentacle to have authority over the daemons, or fallen angels, to build the temple. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of some of the language of this, but the actual configuration, the way it was understood and put together, I'm not familiar.
Okay. And so it's been there, and it's also been referred to through different religions in different ways.
Right. So I notice also you have some interesting things that you do in the area of prayer work, in the area of teaching people about praying, how to pray, work in the area of healing as well. Talk a little bit
Yes,
about that. You have something called the lift. What is that?
lifting. It's a lifting. Basically, what it does is it will remove anything that's attached to you, whether it be human, demonic, or energy, or interdimensional, or not of this world, off of you and take it into protected sanctuary, thus redeeming it back to God, whatever it happens to be. And this was something that I was taught by my guides over many years and many levels. They began in the very first by teaching me about human spirits who were bound into the earth plane because of fear of going into the light or fear of being judged or a lack of knowledge even to the point of not knowing that they had lost their physical bodies. And in particular, suicide very often and murder because of the trauma of the intensity of murder. And consequently, they attach to people. They get within the aura and locked into that person, and they begin to affect that person's thinking, and whatever they died of can actually affect the person's body. And such as if they died of a brain tumor can then start growing in the person that their host, if you will. And consequently, it's a very dangerous thing to have attachments. And I learned step by step. First thing I learned was humans, and then I learned about animals, nature spirits, thought forms, and demonic
You know,
possessions.
Sorry, Carol. A lot of people
Go ahead.
feel that some of this is metaphysical mumbo jumbo. In other words, some of it thought forms,
Sure.
because like, what is a thought form? Explain it to us.
Well, we are electrical beings, okay? We have neurons, and we have neuron pathways, and our nerves are actual transmitters of electricity throughout our body. So when we think, when we obsess on something, we actually can begin to form that and bring it to us, if you will. And there are some people that are more capable than others, or more gifted, depending upon how you want to see it, that can do that. I know that I work on electromagnetic energy. That's how I'm able to see what I see and do what I do. And consequently, everything is based in, if you want to say it truthfully, science. I think all of this is based in science. I think it's spiritual science, personally. And consequently, when I started working with this, I have to tell you that in the very beginning, I was told by my guides that I needed to get the Book of Malkuth.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that?
Kabbalah.
Oh, Kabbalah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kabbalah, yes. I had to go through that. And then I had to use the various names of God. God has 72 names. And the major name is Shemhem Farash. And I had to learn the names of God and what they meant and what they stood for, which each name represents an aspect of God. And then my guides told me how that the spirit community was composed of angelics and divine spirits, and that they each had their own authority over specific things. And they tried to teach it to me in a way that I could teach others. They tried to let me know that God was like a CEO of a corporation and had many workers within that corporation in order to get things achieved. And if you know how to contact the right person with the right authority, or the right spiritual person, entity with the right authority, you could get them to aid you and assist you. And I was told to never pray to anyone but God, but I could ask that the spiritual beings assist me in what I'm asking for. So that's what I was taught to do, step by step. It took about 8 years. Each lesson that I had to go through took about 8 years. And the lifting is what came out of that. And it's called a lifting. And you can get this information. I have it all on carolpate.com on the internet. And it's tons of information. They taught me how to heal using specific names of God and certain entities or spirits that had those capabilities. There's a simple formula for healing that works very well, but you have to build up seniority within the spirit community itself as you start working with the information and with the prayers that are involved there.
I have to tell you
So
that Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You so you can finish.
It's taken me a long time to build this up and to build my own seniority. And now the liftings are very, very powerful. I get to go through it first. I have to go through all the work process, and then I can hand it over to others so that they can then use them.
On your website, there's a category called daily lifting. Is that where people follow the instructions you've laid out and that you've been taught to do the healing or to call upon the authority? What, in your experience, gives any agency authority?
Well, the Band of Mercy, they're involved in the very basics of the lifting. The Band of Mercy are humans. These are people that have been earthbound and have been prayed into the light, into redemption, okay? And they have been volunteered to be the Band of Mercy to help those that are now earthbound. So they're the first that I call upon. That's for human attachments and energy and energetic attachments.
Instead of going to, let's say, Yeshua, instead of going direct to Jesus or Yeshua, why not go direct?
No, you have to know who to call upon, who has the authority to remove it. That's why.
I see. And
otherwise,
you don't think Jesus can remove it or Yeshua can remove it?
Oh, absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt on my mind with that. But it's a wise way to go directly to the Band of Mercy. That's what my guides taught me, to go to those that have authority. So you're not putting yourself in any direct danger.
I just want to clarify here. Why would one put themselves in danger going direct to Yeshua HaMashiach or Jesus?
It depends on whether you've got the faith. If you have the faith, it's like doing an exorcism. If you don't have the faith, the absolute faith to do the exorcism, not recognizing that you have no authority, that your authority strictly comes through Jesus Christ and through God Almighty, then you cannot do an exorcism, and you put yourself in grave danger. And there are people that have died that way.
Okay, I would say in that instance, that's a very special case, though, isn't it? An exorcism?
It is a very special.
Okay.
Where a human is concerned, that's kind of, I don't know how to explain this. Actually, I've never had that question posed to me.
Welcome to It's Rainmaking Time.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. All I can tell you is this is what my guides taught me to do, and this is the way they taught me to do it. And that we can never allow our ego to be affected or get caught up into power. It's a very dangerous thing to let your ego get caught up in power. The dark side can use that against you.
Aren't we witnessing that, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place. And so they taught me to use those, that's what their authority and their job is. That's what they want to do. And that's who I call upon. Could I remove? Yes, I think I could. I don't do it that way. I do use the Band of Mercy.
Okay, it's kind of like, it reminds me of a cleanup crew. The Band of Mercy reminds me of a massive cleanup crew. Am I right?
Yes.
Cosmic cleanup crew.
Yes, they are. They are.
Okay.
By their own choice, which I think is interesting. So they're the ones I use for that. The appropriate archangel or angels is who I use for the demonic. And of course, the Archangel Michael for the demonic. And I've been taught all of these step by step by step. And it works very, very well. I'm going to give you a for instance.
Please do. I think it would help the audience.
The reason when you know you have a spirit attached to you or something attached to you, you get constant chatter in your head. And you get panic attacks. And you don't feel like yourself, and you get intrusive thoughts that aren't normally yours. Very often nightmares and pains that you didn't have before, and you feel like you have lost energy, and you find yourself not wearing a lot of colors, bright colors, but more to drab, and depressions and emotions that aren't yours necessarily. You think they're yours, but they're not yours.
Fascinating. That's fascinating.
And when you do the lifting, you feel it all lift from you physically. You feel lighter. The chatter is completely gone. Your mind is silent. The aches and pains are gone. And the emotion is gone. The negative emotions are gone. And if there is a physical residue of whatever they died of, it's gone. I had a woman that came to me that was dying of bone cancer. Her husband had died of bone cancer a year previously. He had attached to her. When I did the lifting on her, we got him into the light. Her bone cancer disappeared. That's how powerful this is.
This is wild. What you're saying and what you're declaring and sharing is wild. It's wild sounding. You know that, right?
Really? I didn't know that.
Well, I know, but you're the one that does all these things. Let me tell you something. I had a client who was a former Pentagon scientist, 85 years old, from Japan, who used to do super prayers in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Now, I believe in prayer. And I pray. I just had no access to the miracle space. And frankly, with a lot of televangelists online and on TV, many of us who were open and receptive got very turned off to the miracle space, right? To the miracle potential.
Yeah.
And what happened is I had a friend who had a torn rotator cuff in a few places. And I said, look, She wasn't a born-again Christian. She came from a Christian mother. But I said, if you just stay open to receive a miracle, I'll be a proxy for this to happen as well, and I'll be there. And let's see what happens. You have nothing to lose because rotator cuff surgery is brutal, and they usually don't have good luck with it. Medically, it's just a horrific thing. You usually have to go in again and again and again. She said, okay. So she came to this church where this lady was doing an evening. And I had her, we had her stand up, and the woman did her super prayers. And and by the way, my friend had no range of motion without horrific pain. And it was gone. Gone. And to this day, it's gone. She has full range of motion.
Wow.
That day transformed my understanding of a space, not my understanding, my consciousness, that there is a miracle realm. It can be called in, it can be prayed for, and even declared. I can't tell you what happened. I have no idea what happened. All I know is I stood for this woman's total healing beyond human understanding. The minister did the prayers, and my friend was open and receptive. And then it happened. So I do accept what you're saying. It's just a different methodology or pathway into, part of what's happening. This is about the removal of spirits and attachments and parasitic form of energy that latches onto people. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have?
And this is all possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I come from my background is I come from a Jewish family. I'm very involved in Hinduism and Buddhism and later Christianity. And so I'm a blend, okay? I pray with everybody and anybody. But to be aware of this space, that it's doable, it's possible, and it can be potentiated. The thing is, I want to go back to the authority piece, and then I really want to talk with you, if you're open, about Egypt. I want to go back to the authority. Okay. Because I think subconsciously, I'd like your take on this. I think as human beings, we don't feel we have the authority for a miracle to occur or a transformation of physicality and circumstances.
Absolutely.
And that we're locked into the doing and it's a structured doing, like you got to do this and you got to do this and you got to do this. The whole concept, not that you have to do, because faith is not just sitting, but this thing about authority is a very important thing, because in the Christian realm, as I understand it and has experienced it, only Yeshua, Jesus, has the authority for anything. You call upon him or it or the Christ because Yeshua has the authority that we don't. But in the way that you're articulating, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, we do have some authority, but we're calling on a higher authority. Is that correct? Or did I get it mashed up here?
We call upon a higher authority. If we stand in the authority of Jesus Christ, we as humans have no authority over the angelic, the fallen angelic. None. They can crush us. And when you stand in the authority of Jesus Christ, you have the authority through Jesus Christ, through the name of Jesus Christ. Yes. Or Yeshua. Yes.
I want to go back to a clarification about what you said about the authority. You talked about fallen angels. Clarify that one more time, please, for the audience. Who has the authority? We have the authority to call upon a higher authority, correct? In your translation of this, in your experience. That higher authority is Yeshua or Jesus? Is there anybody and anything else?
Yes, the Archangel Michael. The Archangel Michael has authority over the demonic.
Okay, and talk about Michael.
But that's to be called upon. But that's to be called upon in the name of Jesus Christ.
Explain that.
You can't just, it's not a wise thing to do, is call upon the Archangel Michael to remove whatever's attached, affecting, or influencing you. You do it in the name of Jesus Christ, through the authority of Jesus Christ.
Okay,
call
that's
upon the Archangel Michael.
fantastic. That distinction is clear. I think, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I think sometimes one can get, one can get
Personal
confused
power.
about this. Yes.
Yeah, you can get into personal power, and the dark side will play with you and allow that, and then you're lost.
Okay. So, let's take one more element of this, since this is a huge body of also your contribution. What an interesting hybrid of contribution. Look at all these things that you do. I bet there's never a dull
Yes.
moment over at the Carol Pate Psychic Center. Never a
There's
dull
never
moment.
a dull moment, period.
I was going to say, period. That's true. That's true. Do you ever happen to know who wins the presidential election? Do you ever get that kind of information?
I do, but then that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the outcome.
Yes, I'm glad you made the distinction, because without, not to get political, but to say I want to insert one thing here. People always talk about who wins, right? And the reality is, without a transparent chain of custody throughout all the processes that amount to what we call an election, there is no election.
Yes.
So who really won through a transparent chain of custody and who is being declared the winner are often very different. Yeah.
Yes, that can happen.
Yeah.
We're on this earth plane. This earth plane is not run by God. This earth plane is basically a gigantic school for us. And it's run primarily by the dark side.
Don't you think the earth is beautiful? Don't you think the earth is beautiful, though?
I love the earth. Are you kidding? I love this place. I adore this place. I love all the beauty of it. Yes, God did create this place. Yes.
What's your take on, what is your take on reincarnation?
I thoroughly believe in it. I didn't, but I do now.
What made you change?
Well, I'm not going to say I didn't. I was open to it. My daughter. Well, I had my daughter, and when she was 2 years old, I was watching this show, The Holocaust, the movie The Holocaust.
Yes.
And she started screaming and started speaking in a different language, and I tape recorded it. And I got it sent off to find out what she was, and she was speaking in Yiddish and about being a Holocaust victim and dying in Dachau. And I'm telling you what, that made a believer out of me.
She came in with memory from an earlier time and place.
She came in with memory. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And she died in Dachau at the age of 18 and almost died here at the age of 18.
Well, I'm glad she's still with us.
It was touching. Me too. Me too.
I want to talk to you a little bit about something that's brought up in the metaphysical and also in Christian circles called psychic attacks. What is that exactly? Articulate it the best that you can, Carol.
All right, I'm going to give you an example. I had a party at my house, and there was a man that came to the party. He was an attractive man, and he centered on me. And I'm married. I was married. And he centered on me, and I could tell that he was drawn to me. Later that night, I felt him come to me. His astral body came to me, and I felt him projecting to me and trying to project sexually. And what I did was what my guides have taught me to do. I slammed a heavy metal garage door between the two of us and slammed it as hard as I could. And he disappeared. That's a psychic attack. I learned 2 years later, his girlfriend told me about him talking about me doing that.
That means
he knew I did it.
He was psychically aware.
He was totally psychically aware. And there are people that can project. They have the capability, they have the talent of being able to project themselves on an astral level. And they can attack you. They can like try to harm you or sexually or whatever the case may be. But what they don't know is it really hurts them if they continue to do it over a long period of time. They lose life force. And they don't know it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Any other example of what you would call a psychic attack? Give an example you feel that more people can relate to. If you can.
I had a friend. I had a friend of mine who actually had that capability. We were at a party, and I like parties, by the way. I was at a party with him,
I would hope so.
And we weren't together. Mm-hmm. And he was projecting himself to me. I could feel him, like, not sexual. It wasn't a sexual thing. It was more like, I'm here. You don't have a choice. I'm playing with you. And I did the metal heavy garage door thing with him. And I watched him jump back. So it works. It does work. There's also psychic vampirism. You may be aware of that too.
Articulate that. We're getting into some dark stuff, but articulate that. What's the distinction?
Well, psychic vampires are people that they come in and they dump on you all their problems. And when they go bouncing out the door, all generalized, you feel like a limp dishcloth.
I've met those. I've met a lot of those along the way. Oh. Yes.
Oh,
There's no energy exchange when that's happening. There is a one unidirectional energy being taken and siphoned, I would say, and not exchanged.
Siphoned, yes, is a perfect word for it.
No mutual generation. No mutual generation of energy. It's a siphoning.
No, and very often they start fights. They start picking at you to try to get your emotional energy, and they feed off of that. And there's also psychic, how could I put this, love bombers that will get women or men to fall in love with them and siphon off that love and treat them miserably.
How do you keep people positive when you know all this? How do you stay trusting and positive in the day-to-day when you're this aware?
Why would you want to be trusting? Why would you want to be trusting?
Well, what would you suggest?
I suggest do not cast pearls before swine.
Well, that's different than not trusting.
Make people prove themselves to you. Don't give away your trust. Let people earn your trust. Now, there's a way to protect yourself from these people, and it's called a cornelian bracelet or a cornelian ring. It has to be a solid piece of cornelian. If it's a ring, you want to wear it on the middle finger of your less dominant hand. Or if it's a bracelet, you wear it on the wrist of your less dominant hand.
Why cornelian?
Most people, it's left hand. I don't know. That's what my guides told me. That's what I did, and it worked.
Wow. Okay.
Something about the properties of cornelian. That's all I can tell you. They tell me I use it. It works. I spread the information.
What if something you're told by your guides didn't work? Would you go back and tell the guides?
God, I never thought about that.
Would you go back to them and say, this didn't work so well? You got something else?
I would have to say they weren't my guides that I was interfered with, because my guides have always been dead on.
Okay, so let's talk about the interference part. People are interfered with every day. People have had relationships
Yes, ma'am.
bust up, break up, disassociated from, canceled, disconnected from, out of things that communication that interfered with them and the people they were close to or in association with. So what are those spirits of interference? What do you call that? What do you articulate that to be?
Demonic. Usually it's demonic. Sometimes it can be a human spirit that is, they connected to that person before they died, and they want to hold that person to themselves. But generally speaking, it's the dark side that does the divisions. And that's where the lifting comes in. You do the lifting on a regular basis, and you don't have those interferences.
Fantastic.
That's the point of it.
I'm going to have some fun with some liftings. I'm gonna try. No, I'm very receptive, and I would like to try. I would like to follow the protocol, follow the prayer.
Would you like me to do it on you?
Sure, why not? You want to do it right now?
Yeah, I can do it.
You can do it now or afterward?
I can do it now, and then you can tell them, do you have chatter in your head?
Yes, trying to pay attention to this interview is creating... I mean, you're trying to also following the things you say, because a lot of times the things somebody at your level says needs to be translated into a social space so that people get exactly what you're talking about. So yes, there's chatter in my head. I'm following you to make sure that there's a translation into the audience that's comprehensible and clear. Go ahead.
God bless you for that.
Thank you.
You ready?
Yeah.
I would please ask the Band of Mercy to remove all unclean spirits, thought forms, elementals, unnamed energies, including jumpers that are attached, affecting, or influencing Kim, and either take them directly into the light or into protected sanctuary, or do whatever they deem necessary with them. In the name of God Almighty, my one true source, my one true creator, my Lord and Master, Jesus Christ Yeshua, and the High Most Holy Spirit, and I thank thee. I would please ask the appropriate archangel or angels and their legions to please remove all demonic entities, energies, influences that are attached, affecting, or influencing him and all she has authority over now, and place them into the appropriate protected sanctuary, or do whatever they deem necessary with them. In the name of God Almighty, my one true source, my one true creator, my Lord and Master, Jesus Christ Yeshua, and the High Most Holy Spirit. And I thank thee. I would please ask the appropriate archangel or angels and their legions from the appropriate realms or counter realms to please remove all negative beings, entities, energies, influences that are attached, affecting, or influencing him and all she has authority over now, and place them into the appropriate protected sanctuary, or do whatever they deem necessary with them. In the name of God Almighty, my one true source, my one true creator, my Lord and Master, Jesus Christ Yeshua, and the High Most Holy Spirit. And I thank thee. Your audience will be lifted as well if they are listening.
Delightful. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I mean, I'm into being lifted. I mean, just listening to it, just listening to you call upon and in that prayer is like bathing in light to me.
Yes.
Just the sound of it, the frequency of it, the articulation of it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, absolutely.
We have...
You may feel a little lightheaded.
Kind of like after a blood test, but better?
Yeah. Little
particularly
high.
when you donate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Do you have a few minutes to, we want to broach the subject of Egypt. We can't leave behind the majestic, the mysterious, the incredible Egypt trip that you made many, many years ago. Are you open to talking with us about it?
Yes, as I am, and I can finally. I had to sign a gag order, if you will, that I wouldn't talk about it to anyone for 10 years. Isn't that amazing?
Given who you went there with, no, it's not shocking at all. You want to share who you were retained by to go to Egypt with? I think the public will be pretty surprised.
Dr. Joseph Shore, who was the, or maybe still the CEO of Eli Lilly in New York City. And he was working with the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And he's the one that monetarily backed the trip itself. And he was an amazing man. I found him very, very delightful as a person. I had gone to New York to do a workshop, and while I was there, I met a man by the name of Boris Said. He was a filmmaker, a producer, dealing with documentaries of unique situations around the world. And Boris, I hit it off with him, and he had spent most of his life in Egypt. He was part Egyptian, as a matter of fact. And my guides told me to do this, and I went up to him and I said, Boris, when you go back to Egypt and you're going to open up, or you're looking at opening up the chambers under the paws of the Sphinx, I want to be there. And he agreed to do that, which he didn't know that he was going to do that, but he agreed that if he did, that I could go with him. So there came a point when my guides told me to get a hold of Boris, because he was going to be going there to open up and investigate the chambers underneath the Sphinx. And I had, I need to clarify one other thing. I had been in contact with Boris off and on, and I had done a reading for him, and I told him that he was going to be opening up a well just off the causeway, where at the bottom of the well, all the water was going to recede, and he would find a sarcophagus lid that, when it was opened, it would lead to a tunnel that led between the pyramids to the base of the Sphinx, but it would be filled with water. Well, that occurred. That actually did occur. And Boris, I contacted him and I said, you're getting ready to go to work on the opening of the chambers of the Sphinx. He said, yes, ma'am. I said, I need to remind you. You said you'd take me with you. And he said, yes, ma'am, but we have to call Dr. Shore first, because he's the one that's in charge. And he's working with the Edgar Cayce Foundation that is sponsoring all of this. I said, okay. And so I called Dr. Shore, and Dr. Shore said that he didn't need any other psychics. He had, I think, one or two psychics that were working on this. And I said, well, if I'm supposed to go, if God wants me to go, I will be able to go. I need to tell you this. And he said, okay. And he said, I don't think that's going to be happening. And we hung up. A couple of weeks later, he called me. He said, I've got a plane ticket for you to come to New York City, Manhattan. And he said, I need to meet with you. I want to meet with you. And I said, yes, sir. So on the plane to Manhattan, my guides began to give me a lot of information that they said would be very, very important for me to tell Dr. Shore when I when I met with him. So they loaded me up with all this information. And I went to Dr. Shore's office, which was like the top of this skyscraper, which was an amazing office. It was huge. And I realized the importance of this man. I try not to let that get to me because that's an ego thing. I don't want to deal with egos. So I sat down in front of his desk and I said, Dr. Shore, I have some information for you. And I began to explain to him about the shafts leading into the Queen's chamber and what they were used for, and about the sarcophagus that was in the King's chamber and what that was used for and how. And his eyes got really, really big. And he said, the information that you're giving to me now is information that was on a papyrus that was found, and that nobody knows that information.
Fascinating.
He
Wow.
Said, do you have any small children? I said, no, sir. He said, can you dodge bullets? I said, yes, sir. I don't know why he said that. And he said, then you're going. I said, okay. He said, it's God's will for me to go. And he said, yes, apparently it is. So I ended up going on the trip, all expenses paid. And I was at a hotel that was right there. When you looked out to have your breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you saw the Great Pyramid, Cheops. It was amazing, just Beautiful. Amazing. And I spent about 23 days on the Giza plateau, and I met with the keeper of the Giza plateau, and he was an Egyptian that opened up any door that I wanted opened. Literally carried the locks of the doors on the Giza plateau, and there were doors. And I was working with Tom DeBecke. He did the sounding on the Sphinx. They found there were 6 chambers, plus an antechamber, which was at the tail of the Sphinx itself, which they were able to open up. And I did go into the well where the water had receded and saw the top of the sarcophagus, which led to the tunnel that went to the base of the Sphinx. And it was filled with water. And there were human bones, human remains scattered all around the floor. It was a wild trip. The first 3 days of that trip, I wasn't allowed to feel anything. My senses were locked down. I'd never had that experience before. And my guides, on the 3rd day, my guides told me that I was to take a walk. And I was there at the causeway, and I took a walk, and this man appeared before me, and he looked like an Egyptian priest. He had this really strange burnished gold skull cap on, and he had a robe on, and it looked like there was, I want to say, olive leaf design around what we would call a collar or the border of this robe. And he said his name was Helput, Helpath, I believe. I'm not sure. That's as close as I can come to it. And he said that I had work to do there. And kind of blew me out of the water, and all of my senses then came rushing back to me, and I could feel again. My psychic awareness was back. It had been completely shut off. And I began picking up information dealing with the plateau, and dealing with the Sphinx. And I remember sitting at the right paw of the Sphinx, and thinking I'm sitting above the chambers that are underneath the Sphinx that hold information from Atlantis, from previous major information, and something about crystal scrolls, and that they held the information. They held information if you could tap into the crystal scrolls. And they did find, through the sounding of Tom DeBecke, those chambers, and that there were things in those chambers. But we were not allowed, Boris was not allowed to lift the lid of the sarcophagus that covered the tunnel. Hawass would not allow us to go any farther with it. Also, J.J. Hertek was there, and I met him, and we began working together. He is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Very well known. Very, very well known. Also, as a specialist in Egypt and more.
Yes, fabulous, fabulous man. I met him and his wife. And I noticed Dr. Shore, though, he didn't want me to meet with Boris, and he didn't want me to meet with JJ, and I didn't understand what was going on. As a matter of fact, he told me that he didn't want me to meet with them. And there was a lot of political things that were going on there, dealing with the country itself of Egypt, because it turns out that this is a political situation, that they did not want anyone to believe that there was anything prior to 8,000 years.
Right.
Because of their yes, and that the Sphinx itself dated back to 10,500 BC.
Well, I want to add something here that Dr. Robert Such made a formal forensic discovery that the Sphinx had experienced a water event that predates anything in our history books that we think were Earth, like where humans came from and when they came here and how they came here. And he's had this discovery, wrote about it, Dr. Robert Such, and it's been out for like 30, almost 40 years. And it should be a mainstream discussion because it's such a mind-blowing discovery, and the whole thing's been marginalized. But go ahead and talk about why. I mean, it's obvious.
Well, he also worked with Boris Said as well.
Who, Dr. Robert Such?
And yeah.
Interesting.
So I mean, it all ties together. But if you get into it, the political system and the religious system, it's a no touch. And we were not allowed to do what we were there to do. It got stopped. It was such a shame.
You know, Graham Hancock has discovered many things there, but I think Dr. Robert Such, what he discovered was such a pivotal forensic water event that you can see, touch, etc. And yet it's been kind of marginalized.
Well, exactly. The water wore away the Sphinx itself. They were busy trying to rebuild it when I was there.
How long ago were you there, Carol?
I was there, when was I there? 97.
Yeah, there's been...
I was there in 97.
I guess the head of antiquity there also is probably answerable to people outside of the region, probably worldwide, just like Michael Cremo, who we interviewed, et cetera, who wrote the book Forbidden Archaeology, boy, when you learned who is really either allowing or disallowing, or discoveries where they have to be taken, and where they are often hidden, and why the public doesn't get to know. That's a fascinating thing in and of itself, right?
My guide said that we are the fifth civilization. The fifth civilization.
You know how people say all roads lead to Rome? I've always felt all roads, or most roads, lead to Egypt.
Well, the Middle East is where we were born out of, in essence. That's where the transitions took place.
What would you like to go back to Egypt?
I've been back I've gone there 3 times.
Were you able to get any further?
There in 2000.
2001?
I was working a lot. I wasn't able to really do anything more with the Sphinx, which I wish I could have, but I wasn't able to do anything more with that. I was working more with Nefertiti and Telemara.
So you went 3 times. Did you go alone? Did you go with other people?
I went with my group. I have a group of people that we work together. That's where I get a lot of my information. I have usually 3 to 4 mediums that I bring spirits through, demonic through, etc., that I get them redeemed back to God and sent back into the light, I get a lot of information through that, and it's all been provable information. And I have all of it in files. I have huge amounts of files of information.
Are you going to share that, or is that something? Is that something that you plan to share later, or can you later at a later time?
Well, Kim, what I'm doing right now is I'm teaching on Carol Pate Psychic Center on Facebook. I'm teaching for free. I'm giving the information out. I have a first and third Friday of every month. I do a broadcast, and I teach for about an hour of the information that I feel people can use in their daily life. As far as the files are concerned, our state historian wanted me to donate the files to the state of Arkansas, which I may well do. I'm not sure what to do with the files.
I will just say one thing here. I want to say one thing here to you about this.
Okay.
Many phenomenal people like yourself who made or were part of discoveries and had major body of work to contribute. A lot of times universities want these people's files, legacies, findings, etc. And a lot of people, either late in life or before they pass, end up donating it. But I want to tell you, I hope that you have very clear stipulations if you do that, because in my experience watching this, I've seen this over and over and over again. They do what they want, they covet the information, and they don't let it out. So, I mean, it will be a drop off. It will not be a transmission place for your future, for your work. So there's something to ponder. Well, I've never seen it done properly in my lifetime yet. I watch this over and over. Just input.
That's why I put a vast majority of it on carolpate.com. I don't know if you've had the chance to go there.
Yeah, I'm here right now, and I have gone through some of it, not all of it. There's a lot of stuff there.
It's huge amounts of information. So it's there. Of course, when I pass, I don't know what'll happen to it. I don't know. But I'm trying to get it in different locations.
Yes,
I'm trying to break it up and get it in different locations. Like YouTube, I've got it on YouTube. under Carol Pate Psychic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting it out there.
Right.
And I don't know that I'm going to actually leave the files to the state or what I'm going to do with them, because
Okay.
I've got a lot of files.
I'm sure you do.
But it's good input from you. I appreciate that.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to tell you how much we appreciate you and the work that you've done and the families that you've contributed to and the ones who have passed on violently, who finally got to have their passing solved, what happened, and bring back dignity to them and their families. And for the people that these prayers are being, that you've contributed to, and all the work that you've done your whole life. I want to thank you for being here on It's Rainmaking Time. And before we close out, I'd like to share with the audience something. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close out?
I really appreciate the questions. You gave me some really good questions to make me think. And I appreciate the interview and the opportunity to help educate people. That's a very important thing for me. So I want to thank you for all of that.
My pleasure. The honor's mine. And ladies and gentlemen, you can go and visit Carol Pate's website at carolpate.com. And I want to invite you to come back to It's Rainmaking Time at itsrainmakingtime.ch. We thought that Switzerland was neutral. We found out it's not. But anyway, I am doing, and not only I'm a consultant in real life, and I do life coaching, and I also have helped people bring their products to the market, package them, and communicate them. If you're in need or would like communication, counsel, you have speeches to give, you have important letters to write, whether it's through an investment or a product or a project, go to rainmaking.ch. And I have an upcoming webinar called Supercharging Your Rainmaking Ability, because this is an ability that we're all born with. The question is how much it's activated, how much it's sleeping, how much it's inactive or passive. And we will definitely heighten and increase and enhance your ability to, in your own life, make it rain. And I want to thank you all for being here. Carol Pate, God bless you. Thank you so much. It's Rainmaking Time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.